schools in Albania is the limited learning and teaching materials available to teachers and students, especially on practical modules and subjects. This challenge became more prominent during the school's lockdown from March to July 2020 due to the outbreak of COVID-19 pandemic. The shift from face-to-face teaching to an online modality and distance learning made the need for online available content more important than it was before it. And it was very important to actually ensure the continuation of the teaching process. As such, to address the situation, Skills for Jobs engaged the Swiss company Learnets, which is a company specialized in digital content development, to hold the training of trainers in Albania. The training, which was initially planned as a face-to-face training, due to travel restriction at the time, shifted to online modality, which was spread more longer in time that was foreseen in the face-to-face modality. It took place during May and June in 2020 for 6 weeks, and was organized in 6 training webinars and 4 coaching sessions. The aim of the training was to prepare specialists on development of digital content. At the end of the training, there were 30 teachers and digital experts certified, among them vocational schools teachers, pedagogical experts, digitalization experts, and some selected Skills for Jobs team members, which I guess are almost all here today at this webinar. Since June 2020, Skills for Jobs has validated a process to develop digital learning materials, has prepared and piloted 2 training modules of 18 hours each on developing digital content. And moreover, up to date, around 60 teachers have been actively involved in developing more than 240 digital learning materials in a couple of vocational directions. During this process, the teachers have been coached and assisted by pedagogical experts, digitalization experts, and a designer when that was needed. So this is a bit of where do we come from and why this webinar today. So to show our experience during this period of time and our plans for the future. So the main objective of this webinar has been to support skills development projects and experts interested on designing, developing and delivering interactive and learner-centered digital content. Our approach and methodology, as I mentioned also before, has been developed in collaboration with Swiss company Learnets and is now being implemented in 9 VET partner schools in Albania. The webinar is organized in 4 main sessions, as Victoria mentioned it at the beginning. The first one focuses on the main principles of digital content development, including here also some criteria to content effectiveness, roles and expertise involved in the process. In the second session, we'll discuss on the planning and designing of the process. What are the steps here? And the third session is focused on the Wipa scheme, which is a methodology used to develop the digital content. At the end, we'll shortly focus on the importance of testing and improving the digital content as a continuous process. At the end of the webinar, what we aim that we will be able to determine the main principles, criteria, and approaches to developing digital content, understand what makes a didactic or digital learning material effective, and learn something more about interactive media. Understand how to implement the Wipa methodology for the elaboration of digital content, and recognize the importance of review, testing, and improving the digital content. Edlira, my colleague, will start with the first session and discuss the main didactic principles while developing digital content. The floor is yours, Edlira.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. Thank you, Victoria and Erica, for the presentation so far, and thank you, everybody, for being part of this webinar. I really feel honored and privileged to be a part of it too, and to have the chance to present these two sessions. We are going to continue now together. On the first session, we will talk about the didactic principles and the approach to content development. So first of all, I think it's very important to emphasize that the digital learning materials should be based on all the didactic principles, just as all other types of learning materials, no matter how or where the learning process will be carried out. And but a very special attention should be, of course, paid to the learner focus approach and active learning as well. Some of the main didactic principles we should focus on are putting the learner in the center of the learning process, taking into consideration the target audience profile, ensuring, of course, a continuous interactivity as well as a good combination between theory and practice, passing from easier concepts to more complicated ones, from what is already known to what is not known, and of course from what is specific to what is more general. We also should ensure the developing of materials based on the concept's relevance and on the domain's latest achievements. Another important point here should be ensuring of a flexible and continuous assessment system, which means that the assessment should not be carried out just at the end of the lesson or the class or let's say the learning process, but during the entire learning process. And also not just from the teacher or the trainer to the learner, let's say to the student or the trainee, but also a peer-to-peer assessment and involving also self-assessment. It has been a while now, let's say, that the sun has set on this teacher-centered approach when it comes to learning materials, especially when it comes to digital learning materials that have to adapt to all learning places and modalities. It is crucial to priorly understand the learner. So we have to focus on the learner himself. So we can put him right in the center, right into the heart of the learning process. One of the contextualizing aspects to better understand the learner could be, for example, his age group. Well, for example, if the learners, let's say, are teenagers, then the content should be characterized by a simple phrase structure or by a continuous reference to everyday activities or situations, by entertaining ways of learning and testing. We could include, for example, games and contests. Another element to be taken into consideration could be the current or the background education. In the case of vocational schools, for example, the designing of digital content should aim the consolidation of professional skills as well as the preparation of the students for the labor market. Therefore, we could aim, for example, to insert more examples, more case studies, more video tutorials or practical assignments, and so on. Another element could be also the qualification of the digital content or also technology skills and so on and so forth. So we should keep in mind who the audience will be and what elements do we want to explore about them. These elements and many others that characterize, let's say, the audience could be explored by implementing a special tool that is called the persona form. This is a tool for customized or, let's say, a tailor-made digital content that helps the developer of the learning materials to adapt the digital content to the learner's characteristics, needs, and interests, or maybe even help them to fill their gaps. Here you can see an example of the persona form. The authors of this form have decided, in this case, to focus on some general characteristics such as age and nationality, and also on behavioral features, goals, expectation, motivation of the target audience. What the developer of the learning material should do is to elaborate this customized persona form based on what he wants to discover about his audience. Then, let's say, distribute it to everyone or from the audience, and then check the answer to understand what is, let's say, their average age, or what type of education is prevalent, or what are the main expectations, needs, and so on and so forth. This way, he will better adapt the digital content to the audience profile and respond to the audience needs and interests. The use of learning materials where and when is possible and, let's say, more convenient for the target audience is, without any doubt, one of the main advantages of digital learning materials. That is why we recommend an approach called the learning journey, by priorly understanding and maybe even designing the typical day and the activities of the target audience. But how can we actually elaborate a learning journey? One of the ways to do this is by carrying out a survey with our target audience and inserting several kinds of questions. They could be direct or indirect questions, where we can ask them, let's say, about everyday activities, the time they spend on the computer or on their phone, the time they start to study and when they finish. We can ask them about their family tasks and everything that has to do with the typical day of a person from the target audience. We can use the answers to sketch the typical learner's journey that will help us actually understand how to adapt the digital learning material that we are actually preparing and fit it to the learner's day and activities, and how to increase, let's say, the chance for the learner to show interest on this digital learning material. Here's an example on how understanding the typical day and activities of the audience could be helpful. For example, the physics teacher knows that some of his students travel every day for, let's say, around 10 minutes to get to school by bus. So he decides to include a digital content, in the digital content, a 5-minute video, let's say, on electricity, and suggests the students to watch it together while they're traveling to school, so they can discuss it on their next class. Or maybe the geography teacher, knowing that most of her students are at home in the evening, tells her student that she will post a test at 8 a.m. or 9 a.m. She will post a test or a quiz on an interactive media, for example, Kahoot, and the one that will get the higher score will be rewarded with points, with some points on the subject. That is why it is very important to know the learner's day and particular activities. Now that we explained the persona form and the learning journey, it is time for a short assignment. You will be divided into several groups in chat rooms and work on one of these two options that, as you can see on the slide. So it could be whether the persona form or the learning journey. The first thing you should think about right before starting to work on this assignment is what your target audience will be. So you have to have an imaginary target audience. It can be a group of students. It could be a group of teachers that are about to be trained, or a group of other professionals. That is up to you. If you'll have to work on the persona, you have to determine what information you want to have on your target audience, just as the example that we showed you before, and then fill out the form based on the typical profile of your audience. So it's just on imaginary terms. If you have to work on the learning journey, you have to think of the typical day and activities of your a typical person that is part of your target audience, and just make a simple sketch out of it. And you will have around 15 minutes to perform this assignment, and you will be guided by one of our project team colleagues, Rafaela. It could be whether Rafaela, Irena, or Fiorella, which are part of the project's digitalization team. And also Erika and me. Then we'll have a debriefing, a short debriefing of about 10 minutes from two groups, each per one option, just to make a short presentation of the carried out assignment.
You will be now split up in groups. Is there any question on the assignment that needs to be clarified before? I assume it's all clear, so good work to you.
All learning places, such as classroom, home, office, learning modalities, such as online, face-to-face, or blended, and also typology of learner. While building the persona, you have seen that the typology of learner is very different. You have different groups, and you need to adapt the learning, the digital materials to them. First of all, the content needs to match a framework. Whether the content is made for students, for trainees, for employees, or for organizations, it should derive from some respective syllables, programs, frame curricula, or qualification level, and it should aim to achieve a set of learning objectives. We'll talk about setting learning objectives, like already set, or the teacher has to set a bit later during the presentation. Another element is ensuring learner-centered approach, what we have been talking so far. So the learner-centered approach should be at the heart of the digital content development. The learner, whether he's learning in class or at home, led by a teacher or independently, should feel that the learning materials is oriented towards him. One can ensure this by always taking into consideration the learner's characteristics, such as age, qualification, prior learning, or skills, interest, needs, social status, and so on. Inserting in the digital content examples of a typical learner's everyday life. For example, we can integrate a case study on professional practice if the learners are currently involved in an apprenticeship. So in this way, step by step, the learner will perceive that he or she is building his own learning process with connections that it creates with his life and the content he is using. Boosting interactivity, it's very important. So the digital, especially when it comes to digital learning materials, it needs to stimulate interactivity and be engaging. The content should be organized in a way that the learner stays active, no matter where or how the learning materials are being explored by the learner. We can achieve interactivity through inclusion of different elements, for example, group discussion, a short survey, some brainstorming sessions, case studies to be interpreted, which will give the learner the chance to give his opinion and create some collaboration or interactivity between him, the teacher, or the trainer. Tests, quizzes that will keep the learner interacting with the platform if they're using a digital platform, and the digital content. Avoiding so a passive learning process when you have only text or a PDF document, let's say. Group assignments are also very important and provide peer-to-peer interactivity. Other elements may be simulating the learner's creativity. So digital learning materials should stimulate the learner's sense of creativity, and this can be done by integrating in the content elements such different activities to foster independent work, problems or situations that have several solution alternatives. So you can use this problem-based learning approach or a project-based learning approach, which stimulates creativity and critical thinking in the students. By inserting questions or discussion topics for them, such as what do you think of when you hear of a certain word, or what you would suggest in this case, or how the results change if we would do something different. So all these elements stimulate the creativity, but also the critical thinking of the students. Providing a continuous assessment system. Elvira mentioned it also at the beginning, what she talked about the main principles, that the digital content actually should integrate throughout the material continuous assessment elements during the entire duration of the class, lesson, or session, and not only at the end of the subject. We can ensure this by frequently inserting real-time questions, short tests to understand if the information is being properly absorbed as we teach. By including some peer-to-peer assessment instrument, for example, the group assignments or role-playing games, and so on, or by including some self-assessment instrument, for example, by making the learner ask himself questions such as, was this easy or difficult for me to understand, or did I properly understand the main concepts, and other self-assessment questions, let's say. And also by opting for some automatic feedback questions and tests, where you possibly include also the right answer, so that the learner, even though it might give the wrong answer, they will know where the gaps are, and they will improve them for the future, in the future. Digital content also should be based on updated information, so which reflects the fields or the domain development and current achievements. The information should also be attractive and capturing. So the content should make the learner immerse in the learning process and keep him focused and engaged during the entire session or during the entire class. Of course, last but not least, digital learning materials should be inclusive and suitable to all categories, without disadvantaging or discriminating learners for any physical, gender, racial, or ethnical reasons. Now, we want to share with you a short exercise, a Mentimeter link, and we want just you for a very short time to write the first word or some words that come to your mind when you think of effective learning content, based on what you heard so far, but also based on your experience, or what you think that actually it's a digital learning material should have in order to be effective for the learner. I'll stop the sharing of the presentation, so Victoria can put on the results of the Menti. I think you have the link of the Mentimeter in the chat box.
Yes.
Well, interactive seems to be quite an important word, which goes well together with engaging. Simple, I think it's quite important. Practice also.
So we have 25 people that entered the answer. So I think almost everybody shared an answer. That's also a form of assessment, I would say. And to stick to our commitment, to have a break at 3 o'clock, I'll let you all grab a coffee now, or tea, or whatever, or beer for those who are already at home. And we'll meet in 10 minutes, 10 past.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. See you later. Let's wait another 30 seconds so that everybody can get back.
Yes.
If you could turn on your cameras when you're back so that we know
that you are back.
You're here. Yeah. Okay, so Fadi's back. Okay, great. Okay, I think we can start.
We also back.
Okay. So here was the break, but we had a slide beforehand, before going to the break. So we are just one slide delay. Before continuing, the development of digital content, it's very important to mention that it's not a linear process. It's complex, takes time, efforts, and of course, it needs a well-organized work between different actors and roles. In the scheme here, I wanted to, it kind of represent a suggested structure that we also use at Skills for Jobs of workflow and roles and expertise needed to be set up before starting the process of developing digital content. These roles are typically required when it comes to this process. Then, depending on the size of a project or what you want to do, then some roles might not be needed at all. To go a bit through the roles, the didactic specialist or the subject matter expert is the person responsible to develop the content and to make sure that the content matches the learning objectives. For example, in Skills for Jobs, this role is fulfilled by the vocational education teachers, which are coached by our pedagogical experts. A project coordinator is the person who manages the resources and coordinates between the various stakeholders. And this, in the Skills for Jobs project, is fulfilled by the project team, which has also a coordinator to make sure that this happens. Media production specialist, or the digitalization specialist, as we called it, produces the media following the didactic specialist proposal for an online platform or for digital use. In Skills for Jobs, this role is fulfilled by the digitalization unit, which is a project. There are project team members. We have involved like four people in this team, which assist the teachers, but also they are hands-on in digitalizing the materials and uploading them to the online platform that we are using. The digital content then materializes with the participation of all these actors, so project members, institutions, so school, institution, and organization, which is always in contact with us for the pool of teachers which are involved in developing the content, pedagogical experts, and digitalization team. And based on a continuous collaboration and experience exchange, peer-to-peer review, because often the materials are developed in group work, not individually. This process ends up in the content which is ready to be used by the students and by other teachers. This was the break, but we already had that, so I'll continue now with the second session. This session is dedicated to uncovering a bit step by step the planning phases for the development process of digital content. One of the most frequently asked questions when it comes to hands-on with the development of effective digital content, it's how do you go from the main topic to the content? To do this, first you should have a full understanding of the main topic and try to break it down into chewable pieces. After choosing and deciding on the topic, it is crucial to have to really grasp it, to really understand it, which could be done by breaking the topic down to some concept, to processes, to details, reading literature about these elements and taking notes. Then we could make a list of the main concepts and elements, which then could be the basis for us for how to divide the topic into subtopics. Once we know what the focus of each subtopic will be, we elaborate the titles of the subtopic, opting for more informative titles by giving few details to it. For instance, if the main topic we want to develop the content for is sustainable development and environmental pollution, and one of the subtopics that we have, it has to be related to the climate. We don't just name it the climate, but we try to give some more information to it, such as effects of environmental pollution on climate change. Of course, the more interesting and attractive the subtopic will sound, the more motivated the learner will be to explore the digital material. Matching the content to the learning objectives. We started this discussion also in the first session, and here we come a bit more in detail to understand what does it mean. So after deciding on the main topic and detailing the subtopics, the next step is to match the content to the learning objectives of the course, module, subject, you name it. In order to do this, there are several aspects to take into consideration. So in case the learning objectives are already given, which is the case, for example, when you have a syllabus, a university syllabus, or when you have a frame curricula, one should make sure that the person who is developing the content has a full understanding of these learning objectives before starting to work with the content. In case the learning objectives are not given and should elaborate it from scratch, keep in mind the main topic. What is the goal of the course or the training? Because this is where the objectives should derive from. It is also important to customize and tailor the learning objective to the target audience profile, to the learner, to their interests, their needs, their time frame, their knowledge. A progressive approach should be also followed, which means that one level must be mastered before the next level can be reached. Also remember that the process of matching the content to the learning objectives, it's not a linear process, but it's a back and forth process. So you have to go over and over them until you make sure that all the objectives are integrated into the content. Ensuring flexibility in terms of learning modality and place. This is also a very important element. The content needs to be suitable to be used in different learning places, such as classroom, home, office, especially nowadays where we are blending a lot of modalities of meeting, events, teaching, learning. This becomes very important these days. But also using different teaching modalities, such as digital content needs to be characterized by a clear, easy to understand concept, assignments, illustration, etc. These are also elements that you integrated in the Mentimeter to show that what digital learning materials should have to be efficient and to be easy to grasp and to understand. A range of interactive elements, so not only text, but also videos, photos, animations, role-playing games, tests, etc. So the richer the content, the better it will address the learning objectives. ongoing interactivity through discussions, surveys, teamwork, etc. So the learner should feel as engaged and active as at home and in class. On synchronous or asynchronous modality. So we need to keep in mind what is the modality where the content is going to be used in order to address the needs of the student through a different interaction or different element in the content. On this topic, so the main sources of materials, we'll talk about the main sources of information that can be used for the elaboration of the digital content. There are different scenarios, so you might start with already given material, but this is one of the categories to say. So you have written sources such as a hard copy book or an online book, school textbook, monographs, articles, journals, etc., you name it. But you have also a second category where we have materials which is not written, but it's visual, it's audio, it's a registration of a lecture, it's a debate, it's a photo or of scheme, sketches, and so on. So these are the two main categories of materials that you can find out there. Certainly, the larger spectrum of sources consulted and used during the elaboration of the learning materials, the richer and more attractive the digital materials will be. In some cases, the work for elaborating digital content, it's easier thanks to existing and standardized learning materials, such as the case of school textbook. Therefore, when this is available, one should mostly worry on how to adapt the information that is already there into materials that are suitable for digital learning, since the basic material it's available. The real challenge actually is when the materials are not available. And the work should start from scratch, especially when you have to rely on online sources. And actually, this is the case mainly in the Skills for Jobs team work, because we oftentimes start from scratch, having no whatsoever materials, especially on modules or subjects that are related to practice and not the general subjects. But here it comes the question: how do you select? Where do you find that? How do you select the sources for and the materials to use for your content? Here is a short checklist that can be helpful during the process. So first, you have to find sources that are reliable. This is the first filter for selecting a source, particularly when it comes to online materials. You have, for example, some clues on how to choose the material properly would be like understanding the aim of the source and the target audience, opting for sources that give information on specific domains and for interested individuals while avoiding the commercial and community-wide sources. Check the authors and their credibility, but also the credibility of the source, focusing on expert authors, well-known institutions, organizations that might be, I don't know, governmental institution, research centers, universities, etc. And try to avoid publication for commercial purposes or from anonymous authors. So try to be careful to have this filter in mind when selecting online materials. Other elements to be taken into consideration while choosing material sources are the accuracy of information. So we should opt for materials that are based on research projects and data that can be verifiable or facts. The time of the publication. So recent publication should be preferred compared to outdated information. Objectivity, we should avoid sources and materials that are based on personal opinions or biased information. And finally, which I think it's also very important, is the website or web page look quality. So if it a web page does not look serious, if the content is not well organized and structured, or if the materials has grammar issues, then keep navigating to find some more, let's say, verifiable or some more facts and some websites that are more serious and that have materials which you can really double check with the sources that are out there. How to adapt a text for digital content? This is also an important question. And there are several principles you should take into consideration while doing this. The content needs to reflect the learning objectives or the didactic principles, and as we mentioned several times during this presentation. So no matter how creative your concept on the content could be, or no matter the audience or the target you are addressing it, always remember to stick to the objectives that you set prior to starting the development of your material. Develop your content with the learner in mind and adapt the text to the learner's profile and needs. So always ask yourself, what are the learner's characteristics, age group, education level, qualifications, skills, what his interests are, what are the needs, what the skills and knowledge he has. These are some questions that you need to guide, you need to make yourself, and that needs to guide the process of developing content. Gradual shifting. When you write and when you start to prepare the content, start with easier concepts or easier phenomenon and then move to more difficult ones. So go from specific to general, or from already gained knowledge to new information. Be consistent and coherent. So while putting together the pieces of information and structuring the part of the text, pay attention to preserve the structure, consistency, and coherence. While adapting the text, make sure you leave space and possibility to generate different types of assessment modalities and tools, which would serve to you and to the learner as a feedback loop throughout the teaching process and keep them engaged. Reference-based, never neglect to refer to all the sources that you use, sources of information that you are using while developing the content. Last but not least, I think, pay attention to the structure and grammar. Sometimes we have very interesting material, but the grammar problem or lack of structure, it's really make it a problematic digital or a problematic learning material, let's say. So never neglect it. Here, there are some tips on how to adapt a text for digital content. I would like to invite you to write some tips that come to your mind in the chat box, so we can have a longer list of tips which we can share at the end of the webinar, or which we can send you by email. So here I have had some, for example, use short phrases for a flow of reading to make it more understandable and easy to read. Use metaphors when you want to explain some complicated concepts. Use various activities during the preparation of the materials. Test, for example, the reading of blogs that you are using, so you don't have these very long texts which are difficult to absorb. You can explore and see a bit the platform that you are using, the online platforms that you are using, to see what are the functionalities of the platform to customize and to present the text in a more interactive way. So these are some of the tips that I have listed here, but of course there are much more, and really I would like you to add some more elements that it comes to your mind. I don't know, Victoria, are we going maybe to the chat box or to have an overview?
Yes, please enter any. Oh, here's someone coming. Include complementary sources.
Yeah, always it's nice to have like some, if you read something and if you have interest to have some more information about the topic, you can have some sources to explore. And this is especially for adults learning, which they would like to have more information on the topic if it's of their interest, of course.
Then something else came in, mixed text with images, combine it with assessment. Long content can be as explanatory of right, wrong solution.
Mm-hmm.
Any other suggestions? Long content could be optional. That's a good point. If you want to go more in depth.
Yeah, exactly. You create like chunks of information and then you can click to read more if need be.
Use local story when explaining foreign concepts. That's also so linked to the context. We could insert a short definition or an image while clicking on a main concept, especially when it is a process, a phenomenon. Yes. Embed content, video and pictures in meaningful assignments. Yes, also the aspect of assignments. So give a little task to do. So there's a question from Annette. What do you mean with gradual shifting on concepts?
So the idea was to start from easier concepts that the student may already know or they may have already heard of, and then build from easier to more difficult ones. So it's also like a didactic principle at the end, or a pedagogical principle, while you build the text. So you don't put the most difficult information right at the beginning.
There's another input, correct alphabet and grammar. Contents with visual elements and other convenient media. And use smart art and any kind of shapes also to make it more interactive. Thanks for these inputs. It will help us complement the list.
Very nice. We'll have a longer list of tips which we can all use and share. Okay, I will then continue with some information on illustrative tools and some interactive media that you can use while preparing and developing digital content. So in order to elaborate a more effective digital content, special attention should be paid to insertion of illustrative tools and interactive media in your material. But what is the relevance of using them? First of all, the illustration of concepts and continuous interaction make the content and the knowledge easier to grasp and the achievement of learning objectives more effective. Different studies have shown that audiovisual information is more understandable than just plain text. The learning process becomes more attractive and entertaining, which boosts then the learner's interest and also concentration. A concept presented in an audiovisual way stimulates analysis, interpretation, debates, which are all elements that are all relevant, let's say, reasons for us to use more of such sources into our content. Let's take a look at some of the tools we can use while developing digital learning materials. Videos, for example, we all know they are a very useful tool and can replace large text and explain main concepts, processes, or relationships in a more attractive way and in a shorter time. Surveys show that there are much more chances for a student to watch a video than to read a text with the same content. You can create your own videos, or you can find videos on the internet and you can use them in their original version by maybe sometimes modifying them, so cutting parts of the videos that you need, or adapting to adapt them to your objectives. You can insert subtitles, you can make voiceovers, and so on. Here I have listed also some sources for searching or creating videos. So when we'll share, of course, the presentation with you, so you can also find there the different sources you can use for that. Photos are a simple, fast, and effective way to convey a message or an idea, to illustrate a phenomenon or an event or an activity, but also to initiate discussion. So with the photo, you really can initiate and start a discussion among students or among learners. Or you can recall existing knowledge through photos. However, make sure that the photos you use are high resolution and licensed. Here are also some sources for searching and editing photos. Icons are symbols or images given as a pictogram, which represents objects, activity, processes, etc. They are particularly useful in the elaboration of schemes, mind maps, for demonstrating relationship between different components, the impact of a factor, a consequence of a factor, and so on. So here you have also listed some sources of icons that you can use while developing digital learning material. Animated GIFs, here we have also one. It's a short clip created by multiple images that repeats in a sequence. This is a very good way to explain processes or relationship, but also it makes the learning more attractive, more fun, and learners friendly. Also some sources for where you can find and use animated GIFs. Graphic organizer, I think it's not only to make the learning interactive, but actually it's a didactic tool which used to organize the information, concepts and ideas in a schematic way. They are also used as reference for writing an essay, for example. Some types of graphic organizers are concept map, which is used when you want to explain the relationship between main concepts, elements, and the deriving ones. Mind map, it's suitable, for example, to present a concept or a process as a system. Charts or diagrams used when we aim to compare two or more elements and highlight common features or differences between the elements. Flow charts are used to indicate successive steps of a process. Timelines, if we want to present the chronology of an event, the evolution of an element or process. And then we have what is known as the KWL chart, which means what I know, what I want to learn, and what I learned, which is very helpful for the trainer or for the teacher to understand the level of the learner's knowledge before, during, and after the class or the session, and also to understand if the objectives, the set learning objectives, were obtained or not. There are also many types of interactive media you could integrate in your digital learning materials. Here we will take a short look at the Mentimeter and Padlet, which are also instruments that you have used in this webinar as well. The Padlet used beforehand to have a bit your experience or your questions, and the Mentimeter as part of one short assignment that we had during the webinar. The Mentimeter, most of us know, we're using it quite often, especially during this time. It's a program used to create interactive presentations where you could add polls, quizzes, and show answers in real time. It should also be used as the follow-up tool where the results are stored and you can check the dynamics also later on. Mentimeter is quite useful to break the monotony of the text or of a presentation and to engage all the audience in the learning process. The Padlet is a virtual interactive table that can be used for different reasons or aims. So it's a question answer or discussion table. So the trainer can place a question in the Padlet or a discussion topic, and then the learners could give answer and also comment on each other posting, give a peer-to-peer assessment, and really like be very interactive environment. But it can serve also as a block for a teamwork or a group project, as we have our Padlet that Fiorella shared with us before, which will gather like information from different groups, and then we'll have all the data and information there in real time, and we can check them also later on. It can be also a place to create a presentation or prepare an assignment. So quite helpful tools, both of them. When you have such a project, or when you want to start to develop the digital content or material for a course or for a class, it's very important that you have timeline and some setting milestones in mind. So planning and designing the process of digital content development is also it's also part of it, but it's also to define the timeline and some respective milestones. This way, it will be easier to identify important dates. For example, if the digital learning materials are meant to be ready for the academic year, or to monitor the deadlines, to understand the progress, and also to motivate all actors in the team in achieving the objectives within the defined time frame. You can create the planning in rough time units, such as weeks or months, depending on when the material needs to be ready, and set some milestone. While setting the milestone, try to answer the questions such as, when should the learning offer be completed? When should it be introduced? Or when it should be tested? So answering this question will also help you with setting the milestones. And this was the second session. Now we go on with the third one, which is on developing digital content. And for this session, I give the floor to Edlira.
Thank you again, Erica. As Erica just said, in this third session of the webinar, we will talk about developing digital content based on a certain structure, a well-elaborated structure. So it is, first of all, it is important to emphasize that it is strongly recommended to work for the preparation of a digital learning material based on a certain structure. But the answer that pops out into our head is, why do we need a structure? So the profit actually is double. On one hand, it helps the developer of the learning material, so he could properly organize the material, ensure that all the didactic principles are met and the interactive approach is achieved, and also to simplify the right insertion of the learning activities, such as where to insert a video, where to insert a question or a discussion topic, where to insert an assignment. So it's basically a question of what goes where. And on the other hand, it also helps the learner to be better oriented while working, especially independently with the learning materials, and to have a feeling on how the learning process is being built up step by step. An interesting and effective, let's say, step-by-step structure that we can use to base our learning materials on could be Wipa. Wipa is an acronym where W stands for welcoming, so it's the welcoming phase. A stands for the activation of existing knowledge. I stands for informing. P stands for processing and transferring, and A again stands for analysis. But what are the main advantages of using this kind of structure, this kind of scheme to write the script for digital learning? First of all, it's about flexibility. This structure can be actually adopted to all kinds of learning materials, so subject, topics, objectives, or even the person that the developer's point of view, and also to all kinds of learning places and modalities, whether the learner, so it's in the classroom or at home, is in an online class or a blended one, and so on. Secondly, it provides fluidity and coherence, and thanks to the application of this structure, it is possible to shape a gradual learning process, starting with a light, with a smooth element, an attractive approach, up to the final analysis to prove if all the objectives and expectations were achieved. And third of all, but not less important, is interactivity and, of course, attractiveness. The specifics of each part of the structure makes possible to use a wide variety of activities, tools, media in order to stimulate interactivity and make the learning process more captivating. Now, let's see how each of the Wipa structure elements could be actually developed and turned then into digital content. First of all, we have the welcoming phase. This part of the script for the digital learning material should be considered just as a smooth introduction to the body of the learning material. It serves actually as a nice icebreaker and as a light way to capture the learner's attention, to motivate him, to encourage him to share his opinions maybe on a certain topic, right before being really immersed in the learning process. Of course, a well-thought welcome element is a great start to an effective learning process. Now, what are some of the elements that we can use during this phase? It could be a meaningful photo, image, or video. We can certainly add questions to the image or video that we can insert. For example, we could ask the learners, how did you feel right after watching this video or right after taking a look at this image? How can you describe it in few words, or can you relate it to a certain situation or phenomena or an everyday event, etc. What we recommend is to opt for questions that have subjective answers, so that the learner won't be put into the pressure since the beginning of the learning process, but just to take it smoothly. It could be also an inspiring content-related quote. For example, if we're working if we are working on a marketing topic, we could choose a quote about motivation and so on, according to the topic or the subject. We could also use an interactive poll. For example, if the topic is, let's say, migration, we can ask the learners, do you have any family member or friends that are currently working abroad? Let's see now the second phase, the second step in the Wipa structure, that is the activation of existing knowledge. It actually helps us to understand if prior information or concepts are well absorbed, and also it makes possible this fluid shift from the already given information to the new one that is about to be given. And some of the elements that we can use during this phase could be a set of questions. It is recommended to opt for not just for a reproductive question of what is already given, so from the existing knowledge, but questions that encourage analysis, interpretation, deductions, giving examples, and so on. We could also opt for a discussion, a brainstorming session, a graphic organizer. We could use a short assignment or a short test, and many other tools that could be suitable for this phase. Let's see now the other two phases. Actually, it's the informing phase and the processing and transferring phase of the Wipa structure. These two components walk together, let's say, in the Wipa structure, representing the entire body of the learning material. And this is usually where the new information is given. It is mostly given through text, but of course, as you all suggested, even in the Mentimeter, in the chat box, the text should be also combined with images, with videos, with graphics, tables, examples, and whatever you find that is suitable while offering the new information. Then, after informing and processing this information while explaining all the concepts and processes and phenomena, the new information should be then transferred to the learner as the task. That could be whether an individual assignment, it could be a group assignment, it could be also a project to be carried out, etc. Here we come to the final phase of the Wipa structure, which actually aims to understand, as we just said, if the main objectives were actually reached. And so overall, it helps us understand whether we can call the whole learning process successful and effective. We could use here, let's say, a discussion, also a mind map, a dilemma situation, a case study, or some deductive question, and of course other elements. Now, here we can see a script, an already made, let's say, script of digital learning material developed according to the Wipa structure that we just presented. So what we do basically is first we set the phases, as you can see on your left, and then we decide what elements to insert in each phase, and then we develop the content of each of the Wipa's components. And this way we will have a detailed script that is later going to be converted in digital content. And that was it for this session. I give the floor to Erica now for the final session of the webinar. Thank you.
Thank you, Adira. This is the last session that we're going to talk today. It's about testing and improving. This is quite an important step, actually, to finalize the development of and use of digital content. However, I will really shortly focus here in this webinar, related also to the time constraints. So it's very important to understand that all the process of developing learning material, both like being in digital or not formats, it's not a linear process. There is a lot of back and forth to revise and to improve the content based on feedback, based on review. For example, in Skills for Jobs, we use a group of teachers that work together for a given module or a given subject, and they review each other materials to give some review and to improve the material before the material actually it's going to the students. But also you can improve the content later on based on the end user feedback, based on the students or trainees feedback. So make sure that you observe during use of the content. You get feedback and you test the content. You can ask yourself questions such as, was the welcoming session interesting for you? Did the material or the content motivate you to learn more? Are the questions difficult? Is the text understandable? What is clear and what is unclear? So try to get this feedback as you use your materials, and address the feedback and improve the materials as you go. So it's very important that you do this in order to have a material that fulfills the needs of the learner. Overall, this is a very condensed, let's say, information we wanted to share with you during this webinar. At the end, I would like to demonstrate a very short example of a digital content developed by teachers in Albania. Maybe you can connect a bit the dots and try to understand through a visualization or a demonstration what we talked about so far. So I'll stop sharing the presentation and let me try to share with you. Just a second, please.
In case there is any questions, I'll invite you now to also enter. I know I saw some people already entered the questions. We will probably not have time to take them up now, but we will provide you feedback and connect with you afterwards. So if you have any specific question, just enter them in the chat box.
Can you see it? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, this is, we created like a test module, a test subject, just to show you a bit how a digital content looks when students uses it. The digital material is uploaded in an online platform called Mësovet, which is a Moodle-based platform that Skills for Jobs adapted it in Albanian language and for vocational schools. This is a test course to present you how the learning topics has been developed according to the Wipa model. Here is the topic. We choose the English subject to make it more understandable for you. So according to here we have the Wipa model, so different elements. This is the welcoming session, this is the activization of prior learning session, the informing and processing of the information, and then the analysis. The navigation in the course, it's easy and quite fast. So at the bottom of the page, you have some arrows, directional arrows, to move from one topic to another. This is the activity, like an announcement of what's the topic it's going to be for today. So it's a bit of welcoming session. And then if you go to the next one, to the next session, we can see that the topic is being introduced. It being introduced by that announcement, and then we move on to the activation of the existing knowledge, for which a video is used to recall the main concept that the student may already know.
Grammatical tense is how languages talk about time without.
And then, following that, we go to the inform and process part of the digital content. Here, in explaining the topic in more details, the format used allows you to divide the material, as we can see, in short paragraphs and give dedicated explanation space to each of the elements. So you really don't have a long text to read and to be tired of, but you have like small chunks where explanation is given to different elements of the material. Oftentimes there is a photo together with the material, but sometimes there is no photo, but there is just a short text in bullet points to make it easier for the students to grasp. And at the end, there is the again here is the processing of the information. So to get student attentions, the teacher here has used some hotspot options where the students can click on each mark and can see explanation of the lecture that comes here in the screen. At the end of the topic, a short assignment is placed, which is easy to fill in form for the students in order to get the feedback. For example, here you have some alternatives, and then you check your answer. You see that the answer is wrong. So here you have also the solution. So you can see which is the correct answer. So you also learn while making a mistake. So you retry and you see again, and you see that you go on with the questions till the end of the little test that the teacher has added at the end of this topic. So this is a very short demonstration of how digital learning materials can look like for students after it has been developed and uploaded in a digital platform. Well, thank you a lot for your attention. I think we were very Swiss, Victoria. It's it's exactly 4 o'clock, at least my watch, so I don't know.
Yes, thank you, Erka, and thanks a lot to the whole team. We have six representatives of Skills for Job, or even 7 today here, that shared with us in 2 hours what they actually did with I think everything was with the LearnNet trainers and some involvement as well from US at some point. But that whole process took about 36 hours. So we tried to condense what that process was in 2 hours to give you a glimpse of what it looks like. We know it might have been a bit overwhelming, and there might be some specific questions that you might still have. I know Buntan already shared one. I will send you out a short evaluation where you can send, actually, I'll just share it now in the chat. And I would ask you to complete this, where you can also indicate which topics you would like to get more information about, or if you have any specific questions, that's also a place where you can put your questions, and then we can reach out to you. And as I mentioned at the beginning, we have this Digital Innovation in VET initiative. So we're, at least for the coming months, we're available also to have one-on-one coaching or support, depending on your needs. Urs is strongly involved in all this, and he has a wide experience. And the whole team in Skills for Job is also extremely helpful and supportive, and can share from their direct experience. So please take a moment to send your feedback, and we will connect with you soonest to organize a follow-up event based on the needs that you will indicate, and hopefully hear from you after you have been able to digest a bit what has been shared today. So looking forward to hearing from you, and thanks again to the Skills for Job team, and thanks to all of you that made time, especially all our participants from Asia that have been up until, I think it's 10 o'clock in Cambodia. I know how tired you can be after a day of work at 10 o'clock. So thanks everybody. Please unmute yourself, and we can say goodbye in the local language, please.
Sampai jumpa.
Tschüss.
Sounds so nice.